is very technical.
Hey.
We should be proud. We should be more proud.
Meeting is now streaming live.
Yes.
Worked.
But I've got no idea if it's actually working.
Yeah, it is.
Is it? And can people actually see us? Because it from our end, it looks totally like it's not. Yes, it is working. Woo woo! Fantastic. So welcome to today's live lunch, which was a little bit panicky because we had, just didn't look like anything was working. So I was, tenterhooks. Is it tenter or tender hooks?
Tender.
There's loads of things like that.
Is it tea?
People say
I've always thought it was tender.
There's loads of little phrases like that where people say the wrong stuff. There's I found an article somewhere, and there was loads of things where people said the wrong stuff. A long time ago.
Was that article written by you?
No, but funny story. A long time ago, I was talking about something very, very serious. And I said to Kevin that whatever it was we were talking about was like a double-edged sword. Not sword. Don't know what I was thinking at the time. Probably had a few gins, but yeah, there you go.
I know this isn't going to be the point of today's discussion, but my biggest bugbear is when people say Pacific instead of specific.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, but don't you love it when someone says it that you really don't like? Because you're just like, I'm better than you.
I'm president instead of precedent.
Yeah,
that's true.
That one gets me.
I was talking to someone, again, many years ago, probably early 20s, and talking to someone a little bit younger, and they were just, it was like their only first or second time voting kind of situation. And they were really passionate about using their vote and everything else, even though they really didn't know anything about politics, and I knew even less. And they were telling me how they were going to vote Conservatory. I'll never forget that. Never, ever forget that.
Did you catch them? Or did you just smile?
No, because you know what I'm like. I'll just quietly think you're an idiot.
This is why the world's in a state, because these people walk amongst us and vote.
These people walk amongst us, and then people like me don't correct them. That's what happens. Anyway, we've had quite an interesting conversation in our little panicky pressy of the buttons trying to get live today. So I'm sure a couple of the things will come into the conversation anyway. I know Mark's got something very excited to share with us. Yeah, you have.
No, I said I'm a good listener. Listen to you lot.
But we'd like to take a moment to congratulate Jane.
Woo!
Because she's now graduated from her, what is it, you did Couch to 5K?
Couch to 5K, yeah.
That's it. We've had daily updates of her progress, and she has smashed it. Was it 2 minutes off your 5K time?
It's still slow compared to what a lot of people run 5K.
No, it's good. The thing is, Jane, I couldn't even run for the bus, so the fact that you can run 5K is excellent. Also, Jane's going to be really mad that you mentioned that, Christina.
I know, but this is the best thing about social distancing, isn't it? You can literally get away with pretty much anything.
I should have forgotten it by the time I'm back in the office. That's true.
I'm so excited to see each other. All the horrible things I've said will be forgotten. It'll be like, hugs!
No hugs.
None of you will be able to hug. No hugs. No hugs.
All right. Virtual hugs. Cool. So, okay, so it's just us this week. So we normally do a bit of a, what's happened in social media over the last couple of weeks, and a bit of an update in that sense. So who's going to kick us off? Jane, let's start with you. What have you got to share with the class?
Yeah, it's like show and tell, isn't it? There's been quite a few things happening recently, lots of little ones. So obviously during the major part of lockdown, we didn't really have anything new, and it was all either COVID related or it didn't happen. But I've noticed, like, all of a sudden loads of little changes are starting to appear. And one of the ones I picked up on this week was on LinkedIn, actually. about how much more it's becoming like Facebook. I mean, there was the discussion about them having stories a little while ago. Obviously, they've introduced those reactions that are like Facebook. But another thing that they've sort of rolling out now is a sort of suggested options thing. So you go in to create your post and you get options like, would you like to celebrate an occasion, post a job, run a poll, find an expert, offer help, and share a profile. But I thought, and it's a way to make you sort of be able to create a post quicker and to give you some ideas on what to post. But I thought the share a profile one was really interesting, because if you've got someone you've worked with or a team member or whatever, you can sort of showcase their profile to other people, which is just a really nice way of saying thank you to someone, or, you know, get them some more connections as well.
Because we had that said like it was almost like a celebratory post, wasn't it? And you know, you could kind of, you know, it's called kudos.
Kudos.
Mark got that, was it? Mark got that. When we were in the office, he said, "Oh, Emily, LinkedIn's telling me that I need to give you kudos." You didn't do it.
No. Wonder why. Yeah, but the thing is, those kudos posts were actually a little bit, they were a little bit naff, to be honest. And I think, but whether that's because of how they communicate to a UK audience, I don't know. They just didn't. It was kind of like, it was a bit high-fivey, wasn't it? And I think we're quite, what's the word? I was going to say refined. That's not the word.
Reserved.
Conservative. Reserved. There you go.
Conservatory.
Yeah. Conservative. So, do you know, if the person who said that remembers that and listens to this, I'm going to be in so much trouble.
I don't think you didn't tell the actual story when we were live. I don't think. Did you?
Oh, did I not? Did I?
Yes.
It's hard to remember,
I
isn't
can't
it?
remember.
Yes, you've shared it with the world.
Oh no. I thought you were safe.
No, never safe, never safe. But yeah, it is interesting, the LinkedIn stuff, and actually even that posting box now, the way they've laid out those options, it's quite reflective of the way we're creating posts on Facebook as well, and having all those options there. So it is interesting. And I think the tone of LinkedIn has definitely shifted through lockdown. So whether that remains the same, or whether it gets a bit more kind of professional again, I'm not sure. But it would, some of the stuff I see, I think, yeah, I'm not interested. I don't want to see that content on LinkedIn. But there's a lot of people that are actually starting to share more of their world, more of the people that they are, and I think that's only a good thing from a personal branding perspective.
Definitely, yeah.
I think so. I was going to ask that, Christina. Actually, I was going to say, do you prefer it now that it's sort of turning, I guess, that more personal, as you said, showing more of who you are as a person rather than who you are in business? Do you prefer it that way rather than how it was sort of, I guess, prior to lockdown, really?
I think there's more value in it. But we're always going to hold a little bit back, so it's not like we suddenly need to, Mark doesn't need to start posting about, what he's dressing up like on a Saturday morning kind of thing, or his alternative personas or anything like that. But I don't know, it just allows us, I just realised just how un-PC what I just said was. I apologise. This is why normally they keep me in a box. But yeah, it's like having that, I know, it's just being able to get buy-in from people. It's creativity. You work with someone because you've got mutual interests. What I would say is that if people are doing that intentionally, you need to make sure you're doing it in a way where you're still creating conversation, you're still giving people a reason to comment back on your posts. Because I'm seeing loads of stuff that's really good, but, or you can, like, the natural response is to hit like, or, one of those sort of celebratory icons. There's not really anything to comment back on. It's not anything that requires a response. So, and from an algorithmic perspective, we want those comments to be happening. We want those sort of meaningful interactions and engagements to be happening as well. It's really important. So yeah, I do like it. And I do think it's high value, but we just need to make sure that we're still considering the algorithms at the same time.
I think it's, yeah, I agree. I think it's the thing that it's difficult, I've seen a few people, especially on LinkedIn now, you know, on Facebook you get those sort of like emotional posts where people are telling sort of a massive sad backstory or something that's happened to them that's devastating and it's horrible. I think some people are sharing that on LinkedIn, and yes, it might be relevant to their business now as it's sort of describing where they've come from to where they've got to now, and maybe there are some helpful tips in there for people that are going through the same thing. But I've seen a couple where I just don't really quite get the point of that. And I think it's, me personally, I think that's oversharing a bit too much on LinkedIn when there isn't really a point to it that relates to your business or to your work ethic or something like that. But other people might disagree. Other people might like those. I don't know.
No, I think it's kind of, we said it just before we came on air. And this is going to sound really cynical. And, you know, I know everyone's got, not everyone, but I know a lot of people have had horrible journeys and they've had crap stuff that's happened in their life. But more often than not, I'm afraid, I think people put it on and they do it for the likes.
Yeah.
They do it for the likes. They do it to get the algorithm going. They'll do the kind of, look at me, I'm homeschooling, aren't I great? Look at them, you know. Yes, there is sometimes some value in it, and yes, there is sometimes when you're doing it genuinely and authentically, but there are times when people literally are doing it just for likes and attention to get the algorithms going.
Yeah,
I'm a bit cynical, so I agree with you, Emily.
I know. I feel bad saying that. I was trying to word it really carefully so I didn't upset people.
I think you can read between the lines though. Sometimes it's when people are doing it genuinely versus when people are doing it. And there is, you know, there's sort of it's not a parody account, but there are accounts on Twitter and things that kind of, I think they're called the State of LinkedIn, and they pick out some of those cheesier posts and kind of go, oh really, yeah, he used to walk 5 miles in no shoes to get to work, but now he's bought an Aston Martin. Yes, yeah. Paul has just commented going, it's a bit like sometimes people share the X Factor tearjerker story. So they kind of bring in the nan, basically, bring in the gran, having a bit
stage.
Of a cry, going, oh, I'm so proud.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like you said, you can make it relevant sometimes, and sometimes there is value in it. And I have seen ones that have been really good, but then I've also seen ones where I just think you're just posting that just so that for the attention, basically, so that people like and comment. And I don't know, like maybe I feel a bit cynical saying that too, but
realists. We'll be realists rather than cynics.
Okay, so this is what happens. There is a percentage and a high percentage of that type of content. So when you do see something that is actually 100% genuine, it actually hits you harder, I think, as well. So there was a live stream yesterday that was streamed on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And it was someone doing a Zoom call, essentially. And it was like a business coach interviewing, like almost doing like a live mentoring, live coaching session. And he asked this woman, you know, okay, so what, tell everyone about your business. He said, so why do you do what you do? And she told the story, but when she told the story, all this other stuff came out that hadn't been heard before by the business coach. So she's in the Middle East, and she works with basically coaching people in terms of their sort of mental health, mental wellness. And she focuses on working with men. You know, the culture out there, you have to be a man's man, and, and she's kind of, she's really promoting that actually, men need to take care of their mental health, which in itself is a fantastic story. But then she actually shared the reason why, and it was that her father had committed suicide 10 years prior, and her mother was also very unwell, and actually there was all this other stuff. And even telling you now, it's like I can feel my skin going, and that emotional pull. And it was a really sincere moment and a really moving moment, because actually the person interviewing her had no idea. And you literally just saw his jaw go, and it wasn't that he didn't know what to say next. It was almost like there were so many directions he could go in because of what she'd said. But what he actually did, because he'd used something called Streamyard, which sits between Zoom and whatever platform you're going live on, so you can then stream to multiple places. Okay, so he's doing his Zoom call like we are now. We only stream to Facebook, but he was streaming to Facebook and to LinkedIn and also to Instagram, I believe, as well as live streams. But because he was doing that, he was able to bring up on screen the comments people were leaving under the live video. So as the interviewer, he was like, right, you know, I just want to show you a few things. And he was just bringing up response after response after response from the people watching this live, just talking about how amazing she was, how inspirational she was. And it was a really, really fantastic moment. Here's someone with a fledgling business that's got their story and got their message, and got their why, and they've got this, you know, had this opportunity. And it just came across really, really well, both for her and the person interviewing her as well. But the problem is, for every one video like that, there's probably 250 of the fake ones, of the ones that are just kind of, they're not about the message, they're about the look at me.
Yeah.
But,
Definitely.
you know, so we do have to be cynical, but at the same time, I think we have to be open enough that when we see that content, actually we are open to it as well. We don't just pass it off at every opportunity. And I think if you're presenting stuff as well, if you're creating that content and something like that happens, you have to be ready to go with it. If we'd have been interviewing that woman and that had come out, I honestly don't know how I would have gotten through I'm not a particularly you know, I was sat in this chair yesterday watching that, and I had to go and nick Jane's tissues off her desk. I was bawling like a baby, you know, and it's, you know, other than my mum and dad, no one would think that of me. They're like, my mum and dad think I cry all the time, but no one else thinks that of me. So, you know, it was a really moving moment. And the reality is, from a social perspective, it does work. You get all that engagement. It's 24 hours later and I'm talking about it. You know, it's
I think like you said, sorry Christina, I was gonna say, I think like you said, you can tell when it's genuine and when it's that. To me sounds like it was extremely genuine. And the fact that, did you say it was her business coach that was interviewing her?
Yeah.
And the fact that she hadn't even told him, and I'd imagine that they'd have a relatively close relationship with him being her business coach, sort of makes, as you said, makes that even more genuine and makes that feel like, not that I don't think there's anything wrong with leading with that story and people knowing that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But I think you can tell very obviously when it isn't genuine. And I think that, as you exactly said, it is, and it obviously came across really well to everyone that was watching it, I imagine.
Yeah, it was really, really powerful. And I think the thing is, when a piece of content happens like that, you've also got to decide what to do with it next. Yeah, we're always talking about repurposing content. And actually, you know, that piece of content, before the episode had finished, it was like the guy doing the interviewing, he was like, right, I'd really like you to come on my podcast, you know. And it was like, this is something that he was doing as added value for the people that are engaged with him from a coaching perspective. But then when actually he heard that part of her story, he was like, okay, let's give you this other opportunity now as well, rather than going, right, how can I cut and slice this and really like make loads of other stuff out of it. So yeah, it was very much about her and her business rather than him and his brand. And I think that's really powerful. Knowing where that tipping point should be is really powerful stuff. Cool. Okay, so we're getting a bit deep. So let's pick on Mark. Mark, you've got something to talk about. You've got something to tell us about.
I thought Amanda was going to talk about.
Well, I think she's got a problem. She's
she's mute again. No, it was just something that happened yesterday. So both Amanda and myself are big rugby fans, and there was some announcements from the British and Irish Lions about things that are happening next year. So obviously things have been a bit up in the air trying to plan for a big trip to South Africa next year. But they came out yesterday with a sort of series of emails and things saying that everything was going ahead at this stage. But it was really thinking about how they've used that time in between, you know, the initial sort of announcements and now being able to announce things, of sort of feeding information via email and social really as well. But it's sort of teasing people, like Amanda said, about things about like, oh, this is how great, you know, Johannesburg is, or, you know, this is how fantastic Cape Town is, you really need to go here. And it was that sort of trickle feed of information that sort of got people excited, to the point is when I got the first email yesterday, I was just straight on Slack to Amanda, have you had this yet? Sort of thing, have you seen it? So it's that sort of keeping people engaged along the journey sort of thing. And then obviously getting people to buy at the end of it, which is what it's all about.
To me as well, we were discussing it's a perfect example of an email nurture campaign, because their tour packages should have been on sale way before now, but they haven't been able to sell them because they didn't know what was going to happen. So they've had to just be really patient and wait till any official announcements, but still keep people like me and Mark and all the other members of their audience engaged. So yeah, they're really sort of whetting your appetite with you know, here's a throwback to this, and you could be part of this, and, you know, don't worry, you'll be front of the queue as soon as we know. And I think the announcement went out, you know, officially on the news channels like BBC News and Sky News or whatever, I don't know, maybe about 10 o'clock, but within an hour or so we'd both had the emails, and Mark says, you hopped straight on Slack going, have you got the email? I hadn't, so I was like, no, where's my email? But it came through sort of 20 minutes later, and then yeah, so that is a perfect example of marketing by the book. They've probably got the emails drafted, maybe different versions of them, ready to just press the button.
It would be interesting to know how many people buy the tickets off the back of that, I think.
Well, and they've introduced I sound like I'm working for them now, but they've got
what is the affiliate link, Amanda?
They've got a corona guarantee, so they're trying to put those objectives in place. So if people have got that,
you'll definitely get it.
You'll get it.
I'm going to say that's not, yeah.
Okay, so they've got a guarantee that says if it gets cancelled because of a lockdown or anything like that, then everyone will get a full refund. So they're trying to handle those objections before they're raised.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So again, it's a great example of marketing and good copywriting, because they're anticipating what their clients might say and go, oh, well, your reasons not to buy, and kind of, it's like going down a corridor and closing all the doors. So they're trying to shut all those doors at the same time, basically, so that the only thing you've got to do is go through a door at the end that says buy.
Yeah.
Are you going to buy? That's the question.
100%.
No, I feel like I'm in the advert.
It's a trending product, Emily.
Oh, I would buy 100%. You know it. I'm always sucked into trending products.
You'd be the person when it comes through on the email. There's like a series of different tours that you can go on, like ascending price, but then the last but one would be like second most expensive, nearly gone, and you'd be there. You'd be clicking buy.
Yeah, I don't want to miss out. I get serious FOMO.
This is a bucket list thing for me, so I'm 100% there.
Sorry, this is my lack of rugby knowledge. When is it?
Next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
2021, about a year's time. So we've only been building up for it like for the last 3 years as well.
Yeah.
So they've just done a great job at kind of keeping us warm and nurturing their potential client base.
Do you know, I was talking at an event yesterday morning, obviously a virtual event, and I was talking about that kind of the sales funnel and the AIDA model, which I wrote a blog on a couple of weeks ago, but how basically like you need to think of that as your marketing funnel, and that funnels into your sales funnel, which I've got a lovely graphic that I need to send Mark so that he produces a nice poster for us, because I've got people asking me for photos of my flip chart drawing. But you know, that's the thing there in terms of like, if you think about the AIDA, like the awareness, the interest, the desire, it's 100% about that. You know, the action is that you respond to those emails, but then from there you go into that sales funnel, and it is all about the kind of, you know, those leads turning into proposals. Obviously, you know, it's different in that scenario because it's B2C, so you've got it there. But all those objections that happen along the way that you need to be scripting for and that kind of stuff. I don't know, I really feel like in marketing in general right now, we need to go back to basics. We need to go back to, okay, what are those sales scripts? What are the objections we're dealing with? And actually, that's where you get your content from in terms of putting your social media together. So we know these people need this thing. You know, and right now it isn't about putting content out there that is what people want. It is about what they need. I think now, probably more so than the beginning of the lockdown, people are even more uncertain, because now we've got these freedoms starting to open up again, and we can think about going to the pub, but should we? We can think about going on holiday, but should we? Someone's invited you round and you're thinking, oh, I really want to go and see them, but should I go? Have they been observing lockdown rules or not? And there's all these like questions and things, and you think about the furlough and people coming back part-time, and whether redundancies are happening or not happening, and, you know, sort of, you know, all these things. We've actually got even more uncertainty than we ever have done, because everyone's triple guessing themselves. So it is, as marketers, we need to make sure we are telling people, educating them in what they need right now. And they know they're not sleeping, but they don't know why they're not sleeping, and giving them that awareness of exactly what those issues are. But it all just flows through those models. You know, it flows through that AIDA model, it flows through that sales funnel as well. And if we can get all of that right, actually, a lot of businesses will be laughing at the end of this.
I think there's an element in there as well, like you say, is it's kind of back to basics, but we need to reassure people not to panic, not to just send out panic messages and going crazy with the spammy sales messages, because it is hard, and the temptation is possibly to do that because you suddenly have got this freedom, and business probably has been pretty crap for the last couple of months. So, you know, people really want to kind of get back on the treadmill and get the sales coming in. But as you say, there's still going to be a reticence, and, you know, people are still delaying some purchases. So as much as we can, we need to kind of be reassuring people, kind of, it's okay, just be slow, be measured, make sure you're purposeful in everything you do, make sure you're paying attention to all your data.
And make sure you're in line with your overall business strategy. It's not, we shouldn't be content machines.
Yeah, not just slinging mud at a wall, basically. Don't do that.
I think as well, something to sort of go from the less salesy content to suddenly have a panic and then switch to sales. I personally feel, as a potential customer, that isn't the right message to put out at all, because as you sort of quite rightly said, there are still people that are worrying about redundancies, have been made redundant, maybe having some financial issues. And if you've built up a sort of a trustworthy community almost, to then bombard them with sales messages doesn't give out the right message, I don't think. And I think it can almost have that opposite effect, where people are like, well, if they're going to be so pushy, I don't know, I personally would back away from that, rather than think, even if it was something that I was leaning towards, to be honest, because I think there's ways to go about things and sort of encourage people, but like gently encourage them until, I guess, maybe your messaging is back to where it was pre-lockdown in a couple of months, or whenever you think that it's suitable or right to be doing that.
Do you know, a lot of marketing budgets have been cut. I'd say it's probably the more traditional marketing activities where that budget's been cut from. So a lot of people are now going, okay, well, social media, but like organic social, it's only costing my time, right? And so they're kind of hammering that. And, you know, Paul Green's put in the comments, you know, LinkedIn, you know, you'll get like all day long, it's like you accept a connection request, you get a sales message, you know, and it's just the first thing you're doing is creating that perception that you're pushing, you've actually got, there's nothing interesting about you. All you've got is a sales message. Someone's just walked past the office singing really loud. I don't know if you guys can hear it.
No.
What were they singing?
Yeah.
Should we join in?
You can. But the other thing right now is people are going, okay, right, social, it's free. Where shall I be? I'll be everywhere. And again, you know, we're falling back into this pattern where people are going, okay, TikTok's like the next cool thing. Should I have a TikTok account? Okay, now Amanda and I have differing opinions on TikTok. So it's quite interesting. So, and I know you've got some TikTok stats to share, I think.
I have just
Davies. I'm just
Data
getting that in
Davies.
there before Paul does.
Got to keep my audience happy, haven't I? So yeah, I, as a sort of personal consumer, I'm not a massive fan of TikTok. I don't really get it. You know I'm not the age demographic, but to me, it's just people showing off and doing weird dances.
I agree with that, Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of fun, great, but equally, oh my God, you can lose so much time on it. It's an absolute time vampire. So yeah, so I'm not really interested in it, but the marketer in me is interested in it because I'm keeping an eye on it. And I think had lockdown not happened, TikTok wouldn't be growing as fast as it is now, because people would have less time to do these crazes, to spend time creating videos. But 1.9 billion people have downloaded it. So it's been 1.9 billion devices it's installed on, which is crazy. 800 million plus daily active users. It is a huge amount. And if you look at graphs that kind of show how it's been adopted, it was kind of steady growth, and all of a sudden does that. So it's, the takeoff's been crazy. It's very shareable content as well. So granted, it's not all dance crazes, and you can just create a straightforward 5 or 15-second video, which is nicely shareable. So you can take that and put that onto YouTube, put it onto Twitter. So, and it's still got the TikTok logo. And so you're using that to create the video. So I guess, trying to argue myself out of the pros and cons, pros are that you can use it as a video editing tool and then share it onto other platforms. But yeah, I mean, as I say, from a personal point of view, I'm just like, why would you use this?
So we've got to think about the pattern, okay? So the pattern is social media platform appears, all the kids are on there because they're escaping their parents, okay? They want their own private space. And what's happened is, because we've seen it happen, we saw it happen with Facebook, we saw it happen with Instagram, Snapchat, now we've got TikTok, and the same thing's happening again. We've also got influencers and that whole influence model, okay? So the influencers hop onto TikTok, the kids hop onto TikTok, the marketers know what's coming, so the marketers have hopped on to TikTok, and the mums and dads and cool aunts and uncles are now chasing behind so that they can be there too, okay? And that's what happens. All of a sudden, the marketers are there, the parents are there, and the kids go, bugger this, I'm back off to Facebook, Instagram, whatever as parents we've left behind, kind of thing, or the adults left behind. So TikTok is growing because of that reason. The influencers are there, the kids want to follow the influencers, the adults want to follow the children, okay? And obviously, I'm saying children, they should be 13 years old and plus, but the reality is there's like 6-year-olds with TikTok accounts, which is where I don't agree with it, and I have massive issues there on a personal note. So we know this pattern's going to happen, and as marketers, commercially, we have to respond to that or have some sort of response to it. Then look at TikTok as a form of content, okay? Rather than thinking about it as a platform, think about the style of that content. It lends itself really, really well to stories. It's creating that content possibly better than Instagram stories, Snapchat, Facebook stories are doing. And like you said, Amanda, it's highly shareable. So people create their TikTok. I've done it. I've created something on TikTok, then shared it to my Instagram story, and it works fantastically. Okay, so you've got this going on as well. My personal view is that one of two things are going to happen. Okay, either Facebook will buy the TikTok element of Libsyn, or they will just redevelop it themselves. Okay, so like they're two things are definitely going to happen. Now we've got this kind of political stuff going on. So
yeah, that's interesting, that side of things.
Yeah, so to really paraphrase it down, TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, and there's lots of data concerns about Chinese governments accessing personal information via the TikTok app, and there are certain countries that don't want them to have that information. So TikTok's been banned in India this week, end of last week, the weekend, it was banned in India. Immediately, Facebook sped up its development of something called Reels, which is its TikTok equivalent, and distributed that in India. Okay. At the same time, India's got its own version, if you like. An Indian company has got its own version of a TikTok equivalent. And that was, that saw massive downloads in India as well, within like 24 hours, 48 hours of the ban. So people are loving this style of content. They're loving all the stickers and the labels and everything else. And it does work really well, and it is nice and easy to use. So this format of content, as marketers, we definitely need to get our heads around. Now, at the minute in the US, there's kind of noises about the US banning it, whether they're going to be able to do that or not. There's lots of people saying yes and no on there. There have been whispers about it being banned. If it gets banned in the US, will it get banned in the UK? There's a whole world of stuff going on there. But the reality is, whatever happens, there will be some form of TikTok type content. That's quite hard to say, TikTok type content. We will be seeing something like that. Within the next 12 months, we'll be seeing it in the same way we see Instagram right now. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we're going, oh, Instagram, don't really get it. It's just for the kids. It's just kids posting selfies with those lips doing that. But I've never been able to do it. Emily can do it.
I'm not doing it.
This is where Emily sends me private messages saying, Christina, remember this is live. So for me, TikTok's a really interesting thing, really interesting. I am concerned about the privacy stuff, but there's just so much stuff going on there anyway. I've created an account. I've done maybe 3 or 4 things on there just to test it out and play with it. But it is interesting starting to see some of the, I'd say sort of the bigger business names now creating content on TikTok as well. So it is worth researching.
One thing as well, I've been thinking, okay, how would businesses use it? Because like you are, even though I'm a bit cynical about it, I'm really intrigued by it. I'm kind of like, why is this taking off? And how long does people must spend hours crafting these videos? So part of me wants to kind of create one to see, to go through the journey with it. What's it like? But equally, how can businesses use it? But if you are, say, if your chosen demographic is, school leavers, graduates, if you're a recruiter in the hospitality sector, rubbish place to be at the moment, unfortunately, because there's not many events going on. But if that's who you're aiming for, that's where they're going to hang out. So why wouldn't you potentially look for that? So same as Instagram, and try and make it not boring, because a lot of these, company will go, well, we need to have a LinkedIn company page. You're not going to get school leavers and graduates on there engaging with, here's an interesting blog, here's a post from my company. But they may well engage if you're on TikTok or Instagram doing that. So so I am really intrigued by it and feel like I'm just going to keep it kind of on my radar.
One of the best
Go on, Jane.
I was going to say, one of the best things I saw, and it was actually right at the start of lockdown when, just before it, when the hand washing thing was happening. And there were some really good videos that the NHS and other people had actually put on there about washing your hands and made them funny. And I thought, what a great way to actually get to those younger people who quite possibly don't wash that often, maybe, I don't know. And what a great way to appeal to them and make it funny. and hopefully it did the job. I did think that was a really good use of it.
As someone with teenage and young nephews, I can confirm getting them to wash is, well, you know, with boys, it's not always easy.
That's disgusting. I don't know. I agree. I think for marketers and for businesses, you can, if you're clever about it, like that instant chain, you can use it and make it work for you, and it can work for you really well. Like I know a couple of quite small businesses that made accounts quite early on, to be honest, when it was just gradually starting to go up that peak. And some of their videos have got like 500,000 views and things. And that level of reach, they would never get on Facebook or Instagram because they just don't have that amount of followers at the moment. So I think, especially if you were on it at the beginning, it could have been, it could work well for you. But I think even now, if you use it cleverly and your target audience is there, then it can work. But I do agree with what Amanda's saying as well about, from a personal point of view, sometimes the videos do get on my nerves. But then I see ones that I do think are quite funny. They're doing one at the moment about Princess Diaries. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's really funny.
I like the so if you've not looked at TikTok before, they have these like challenge videos, and the idea is you have to it's like you're recreating a video that someone else has started. And there's one where it's like you're sat in the car, and there's maybe it's like maybe my husband would be in the driving seat and I'd have my handbag there, and I'd go to put my handbag in the boot, but as I swing my bag, you've got to like whack him in the face.
Hit them in the face.
And then you're going, oh no, I need something. So then you get your bag back, and you whack him over the back of the head with it instead. And it's really pathetic and really, really childish and absolutely brilliant at the same time.
Is that just because you want an excuse to beat up? Again, I'm not joking about that kind of thing, but
maybe there's a little bit of that kind of like bullying part of my character that comes out at that point. I don't know. But
you're not always cuddly, Christina, as per your hashtag.
No.
We know.
Your hashtag.
You guys know better than most. So moving on from that, thinking about the challenge element and also the hashtags, one of the things that's happened over the last week or so is, we've always had hashtags on, we haven't always had hashtags on Facebook. For a few years, hashtags have been a thing on Facebook, but they've never really taken off. They've not really been adopted. And we had the same thing on LinkedIn. And then, I don't know, maybe about a year ago now, LinkedIn had another push on hashtags. And now it's like every post, people are putting hashtags in, and they're using hashtags for searching and following them, that kind of thing. Well, now Facebook seem to be doubling down on hashtags again. So whereas like literally 2-3 weeks ago, if someone asked me the question about hashtags on Facebook, I'd go, yeah, do what you want. It's not really important. I think it is about to become really, really important on Facebook. So the rules, if you like, 3 to 5 hashtags per post. Have that same approach we have on LinkedIn, and on Instagram as well. So write your content, drop down a line or two, put your hashtags in there. One of the things that we're kind of seeing being tested is that when it's like a hashtag to do with a challenge. So have you guys seen there's been like the 25 press up challenge has been going around Facebook? Basically, Facebook's recognizing if it's a post to do with that hashtag, it's then adding a button that you can kind of press, you can click the button and it's going to create a post based around that hashtag. Okay, so some of these hashtags are being picked up in terms of the functionality. So there's a really good article from Mary Smith that I should put in the comments. That might be useful for anyone that wants to read into it a little bit deeper. But yeah, essentially, like I say, start thinking about your hashtags on Facebook, 3 to 5 hashtags per post. And one of the things that is being suggested as a bit of a tactic is to actually go back to some of your recent content that's kind of better performing, and actually go in and edit that, add in those extra hashtags, or if you've not included any, add 3 to 5 hashtags there, and essentially kind of whether it's for your email marketing or just your general communications, try and get people to re-engage with that post because you should see a bit of a boost in terms of the reach of that. And if it was something that was already getting a little bit of engagement, then yeah, from an organic perspective, it could have some real value for you. So yeah, I thought it's quite interesting that if you think about the kind of history of hashtags, you know, it was just, you know, 2 hashtags per tweet on Twitter, and they didn't really happen anywhere else. And now it's like they're everywhere. You know, and I say LinkedIn tried and failed with them, tried and failed with them, tried and it's stuck. Same thing with Facebook. And because we've seen that success on LinkedIn, I think they will stick this time on Facebook as well.
It's interesting that you said, Christina, about going back through some of the posts as well. I think, I mean, I'd sort of heard about it, but I didn't know about that element of it. I didn't know that would work. So yeah, it's interesting about that.
The other thing that's been suggested, so Emily's like the Instagram, well, Emily and Amanda are both kind of really into their Instagram. And
Jenny, who's not on this call, she doesn't often join us for lunch, but she's an Instagram queen now as well.
She is.
She's the Instagram. She needs a crown.
I do love stories, I must admit. Do love good stories.
But one of the things as well, because obviously Instagram and Facebook, you're kind of looking at the same database essentially. So you're trying to figure out what hashtags to use on Facebook, because we're not seeing a counter or anything in terms of the usage on those hashtags. Do your hashtag research on Instagram. So do your searches there, you'll get an idea of how often those hashtags are being used. Go for something that's mid-range. So if there's a hashtag that's being used by millions and millions of people, and there's another option that's like, you know, hundreds of thousands, go for the hundreds of thousands because you're less likely to get lost. I also like to couple up my hashtags. So I'll use something that's perhaps being used by hundreds of thousands and a hashtag that, you know, something really general, and then something that's like really super specific. And yeah, and just kind of pair them up that way as well. So you've kind of got that sort of broad range and more niche in terms of those hashtags.
I think where Instagram differs as well is in terms of the amount of hashtags that you use. So as you were sort of saying, Christina, like Facebook, it's sort of 3 to 5, Twitter, which usually is kind of around 2. LinkedIn, I tend to go for 3-ish. But Instagram, well, from research that I've done previously, it's a lot higher than that. So it's sort of, the maximum you can do is 30. And there's been sort of contradicting theories as to which, sort of how many amount of hashtags sort of gets the most engagement. But I tend to put sort of 15, between 15 and 30. I found that that's worked. A couple of times I've gone over 30, and then it doesn't actually post. It doesn't stop you, but you click post and then it doesn't, so it stops you at the point after posting, if you see what I mean. And then so it doesn't stop you before, so it doesn't go red or anything like that. You know, when you're sort of tweeting over the amount of characters, it's obvious there. It doesn't do that in Instagram, but it does stop you when you actually go to post. But yeah, that's quite interesting. And also the way that you can see the impressions, I believe, from the hashtags. So under the post itself, if you click into the view insights, scroll down a little bit, and then it shows you specifically how many people have seen your post through only the hashtags. And I always find that number's really high, much higher than, as I said, sort of on other platforms. So yeah, it's definitely important, I think, to be using those hashtags 100% on Instagram, I think.
Brilliant. Cool. Okay, so before we wrap up, anyone got anything else they want to share? Anything else they've seen?
Paul's been challenged to do a TikTok dance, so I think we should see that.
Okay.
He has said no way, but you know,
peer pressure. We can do it.
I think maybe in the BuzzCom community.
Or maybe, yeah, when they get back to do some physical meetings, he could come up with something for that.
Yeah. But you know, these crazes go through. There was one a few years ago where everyone was like a statue. I can't remember what it was called. But everyone would freeze. Walk through.
I can't remember what it's called though. I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
that's funny. The I have to tell you this. The Princess Diaries one. Basically, there's this thing in Princess Diaries. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Where it's at the school, and then they phone, and the Queen's coming to visit, and this woman answers the phone, and she goes, and then she goes, the Queen is coming. Anyway, people are doing this video, but they're picking up their pets. It's so weird, but it's really funny because sometimes their pets are just look really confused. Like there was something with this kitten. This kitten was honestly like, what? And this one had a hedgehog. It really made me laugh.
Oh,
Anyway,
I'll try
you should try
George.
that.
I'll try it with George.
I would try it with Sasha, but I think she'll be a bit
She's
too
a bit big.
Wow.
Because their small pets come in handy. I mean, we do have fish, but I don't think that would go down very well.
Do you know, I was a little bit concerned that this was all a bit too serious, but we've seemed to have suddenly like dived
Full
right again.
circle.
I can always bring it back to town.
We are professionals, honestly.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, let's leave it there. And yeah, hopefully for anyone watching, hope it's been really useful. Hopefully there's been a pearl or a pearl and a half of wisdom in there, and maybe even a laugh along the way. We will see you next Thursday. Have we got a guest confirmed?
Yes, hopefully. Yeah, so she did confirm. I need to just check in with Rhonda. So Rhonda D'Ambrosio, who is mental health specialist, resilience. So she's going to have some all-round lovely woman. So we're going to have some good stuff to share next week.
Cool, fantastic. Right, we'll see you all next Thursday at 12 o'clock. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.